There's my heading, Giant Trees. There's our website, creationresearch.net. And yes, as usual, we'll have several Q&As through here. Or as Diane says, if you want to learn more about some of the plants at Kew Garden or questions on them, go to our Q&A or our fact file and search trees. Some of you know, because you've been to Jurassic Ark, that it started with the discovery of fossil trees. Hundreds, thousands. In fact, we've had an underground radar survey here, which, by the way, is an expensive thing to do, that indicates there's at least 10,000 trees, fossil trees, on the property. And we call it the fossil flood logjam. Have a look at what we found. There was our first exposure, and you'll see several varieties of trees, and there is a dominant trend on the screen that's sort of trending from the bottom to the top, basically in the real world, that faces from southwest to northeast when you actually analyze all the directions. And the trees, well, there's a flood logjam, except that one's in Canada. You can see there's been a landslide. Well, probably you can't. I know there has been. Further up behind there, the trees have fallen down and been washed into the river. And then as they've rolled down towards the coast, because here am I down on the British Columbia coast where the trees have arrived. Notice that they've been abraded. Notice that their points have been rounded. And as we love to tell you back at Jurassic Ark, that's exactly what we find. So it would seem that flood logjams have got consistent behavior by which you can recognize them. How would this happen? Well, the trees just roll round and round, their bark is stripped off, their branches are broken, and their front ends get pencil-shaped or pointed. It's a dead cert characteristic. Okay, we have some volunteers. There's one of our newer ones we've excavated. You'll see small trees, large trees, and this one, no, we haven't yet reached the other end of it. It's a fantastic tree. Most of these, by the way, are pine trees, southern pine trees, southern conifers. And if you are interested, they are like the southern conifers, the big ones, in the Arizona petrified forest, except it's not a forest any more than ours is. These trees are usually minus branches, minus roots. They have been washed in, tipped round and round, and they are now abraded pencil points that are evidence of which direction the water flowed in. And in our case, it seems to have gone in a southwest, southeast, northwest direction. And the trees have arrived en masse. It presents a fossil flood logjam dump. Now you see the end there? We've excavated now probably hundreds of these trees, and we've mapped up to 10,000 of them. I'll tell you what, we've got a lot of work still waiting for us. I dig this sort of stuff because it's the only way you can actually get to see it. We even have at our open days the world's first petrified tree sundial. See it standing there? This tree was actually found by a year 7, year 8 group, and Diane helped them put it all back together again, and I helped them get it up to the top where we could put it on a concrete platform, and it actually is the world's first sundial made out of a petrified tree. But Joseph mentioned my research into giant trees. Now, so far, we've only got one huge tree that we found. Unfortunately, with the rains that fell last year, this tree, which is 5 feet across, 1.5 meters across, that's a pretty big tree. That's not around, that's simply across, is now back underwater. In fact, we found it one day and expected to be able to dig it up starting the next day, but overnight the whole dam flooded, and we know exactly where it is. So we're waiting for a drought to produce. Okay, here we are in central Queensland. The cliff in the background of the first picture is full of rocks and it's full of trees. The stones have been abraded. They've got rounded edges. They're smooth, they're polished. But there are plenty of trees that are turned to stone, petrified trees. The branches are broken off. They've been smoothed off. They're turned to stone, fossil trees. Most of them pine trees. There's my old friend Eric. Eric was a lovely Christian guy, but he's gone to be with the Lord now. quite a few years ago, so he's having a better program this morning than anything we're doing. Do you see the tree that he's touching? This tree turned out to be a huge tree. That's one of the branches off it. Do you see my youngest daughter there? Another one of my kids further back. You see Eric in the background in the yellow shirt? That tree still is underneath Eric. It was almost impossible. We didn't have drones in those days. We're going to get back there one day and actually refilm the whole lot. Did we actually find this? No. It was found by an oil drilling rig team who was absolutely staggered at the size of this tree, because it turned out to be, well, 130 meters long. It turned out to be 30 meters around. It was a huge tree. It was a pine tree, 410 or so feet long in the old imperial system. And no, it's not the only one. You see, they've now found a second one. Now, we have pieces of the first tree, and I promised the owner I simply wouldn't tell where it was, because he said that's my superannuation policy. The tree wood is opalized. But this one was dug up and put on a display at the museum there. Oh, there's our colleague Fred for scale. Oh, no, that's not the whole tree. You get up close and it says this is a branch. Now, just to show you again, there's the branch, and they brought the branch in. Most of the fossil trees don't have branches on. This one came with a stump as well as a branch. Notice what they've called it: 100-million-year-old pine tree, conifer tree, branch. Now, it's a huge branch, and in fact, the tree was too big to move, just like our tree is too big to move. Fantastic stuff. But giant trees. If you want an idea of the scale, I did this diagram for a presentation I first gave in the USA. So it's in the old imperial system. There's a man 6 foot high, a bit under 2 meters high, and put him in for scale. There he is beside the old Boeing 747 that has been redundant now in many places on the planet. So you can see the man doesn't show as much of an object beside the 747. But now let's put the tree in. Now, how would you like a world full of those trees? You see, there are giant trees, but many of these trees, 450-foot maximum with the leaves and that attached, a huge tree up to 30 feet around down at the bottom, a huge tree, a massive amount of timber, is one of the biggest ones that's ever been found dead on the planet. And it's in a water deposited bed, because we went all through that area, and there are trees by the millions. Now, not just by the tens, not just by the hundreds, and the majority of them are all in the giant category. They're turned to stone. They're associated with nearby coal beds, but the coal seems to be the bark, and the trees have been stripped of their bark as they tumbled, and they've ended up in a tree bed, catastrophic flood logjam.